Hi, friends, and welcome to another RobCast. And today, in the back house, we have with us Joshua Becker. Joshua, welcome.
Well, it is a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Rob. We're meeting
It's
for the first time today.
Yes, we are. We are. I actually didn't want to have too much conversation before I turned it on because, uh, the magic happens. I want everybody in on this. So let's start here. Let's start. You're living in Vermont. And there's a day you're cleaning out your garage. Let's take us back to how the whole thing started. Because, RobCast friends, when you hear this story, good Lord, you're going to love this. I'm telling you up front already, you're going to love this.
I was always a little discontented with my life. I always lived a very middle-class life. I was always a little discontented with my money, that I was always living paycheck to paycheck, despite pay increases. Like, I was never able to get ahead.
Whatever you made, you managed to spend as fast as you made it.
Yeah, go figure, right? 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So
Do they
I was
really?
not. Yeah, that's the USA Today number, at least last time I saw it. So it was me, and that weighs on you, right? I mean, that just weighs on you. Well, Saturday morning, Memorial Day, 8 years ago, my wife and I wake up to do what most Americans do on the weekends: clean the house, run some errands, and do some shopping. I volunteered to clean the garage. It had been this long winter in Vermont, and you've cleaned out a garage after
Yes.
winter, right?
Yeah.
It's dirty and muddy and. So I had my 5-year-old son, Salem, out with me. I was pretty sure he would enjoy cleaning the garage with me, because what 5-year-old son doesn't, right? I said, Salem, let's pull everything out of the garage. Let's hose it all down. We get started. He finds a wiffle ball bat and a wiffle ball, and the last thing he wants to do is help his dad clean the garage. He has to go play in the backyard. I say, sure, go ahead and play in the backyard. I have to finish the garage. So I'm working in the garage. I'm hours later, still working on the same project.
Pull that mic just a tad much. There we go.
Sorry. I'm hours later working on the same garage. My son's running back and forth about every 20, 30 minutes, asking me to come play catch and come play with him. I keep pushing him off. Just a minute. I'm almost done. My neighbor, she's 80 years old, and she's out doing the landscaping of her house, which is now on my bucket list, that my wife would do the landscaping when she's 80. But anyway.
Okay, we'll come to that in a little bit. Keep going.
Juna's outside, and I think she's noticing this frustration growing on my shoulders of how much time I'm spending on the garage while I wish I was in the backyard with my son. We happen to walk past each other at one moment, and she makes this very sarcastic comment. Oh, isn't it great owning a home? The joys of home ownership is what she said. I said, well, you know what they say, the more stuff you own, the more your stuff owns you. And she responded with this absolutely life-changing sentence. She says, that's why my daughter is a minimalist. She keeps telling me I don't need to own all this stuff. And I look back at my driveway, which had this pile of dirty, dusty things. And I knew full well that my possessions weren't making me happy, but as I look at this pile of things in my driveway, out of the corner of my eye, I see my 5-year-old son swinging alone in the backyard, and suddenly had this realization: everything I owned wasn't not just making me happy, right? Everything I owned was actually taking me away from the very thing that did bring me happiness. Not just happiness, but like joy and purpose and fulfillment were all in the backyard, and I was wasting all my time and energy caring for the stuff that didn't really matter. So that began our journey of saying, let's just get rid of the things that we don't need to have, and let's start living with less.
What's your wife's name again?
My wife's name is Kim.
Kim. So you go in the house. You've had some sort of epiphany in your driveway. Do you go in the house and say to her, we have too much stuff? What does that conversation look like?
As I recall, the exact sentence was, hey, you'll never guess, June said we don't have to own all this stuff.
Really?
That was my neighbor. June said we don't have to own all this. And so I hit my wife at the perfect moment, because she had been cleaning the inside of the house at the time. Literally, she was in one of the bathrooms scrubbing the bathtub at the time. And I said, I don't think we should own all this. And she's like, that sounds pretty good right about now. So that began our journey. Like, we were both in from the very beginning, just immediately drawn to the idea of of getting rid of stuff that just didn't need to be there.
And so, like, what did you do first then?
Uh,
Where'd it
the,
go from there?
the first thing I did literally that afternoon is I searched minimalism on blogs and searched what is minimalism. That's what we do in the 21st century, right? You run to the website to,
Sure,
to find out what it
sure.
actually is. And I stumbled across all these people all around the world, Colin Wright and Leo Babauta and Dave Bruno, and they're all Logan and Tammy Strobel, like all examples of people who have essentially said, we are just going to own the things that we need, which is such a novel idea when you think about it, right? That we would just own the stuff that we need to own. And every single person I read was just singing the praises of owning less and how it allowed them to travel, allowed them to get out of debt, it allowed them to move, it spurred all these other habits in their lives. They were all doing it a little bit differently, but they all had the same basic idea that they were going to own less. So that was literally the first thing that I did. As far as cleaning anything out, the first thing I cleaned out was my car. At the end of the evening, then my car was parked on the side of the road because I was cleaning the garage. So as I pull my car in, I think I'm a little more sensitive to physical things than I ever was before.
Yep,
And
yep.
I'm just looking around my car and there's just pile of things. There's old CDs and maps and sunglasses and receipts and Happy Meal toys and ketchup packets, right? Like all these things that didn't even need to be
Yes.
in my car.
Yeah.
And that was literally the first thing I did was I pulled everything out of my car except for the owner's manual and a pair of sunglasses.
Yeah, I've noticed every time I've sold a car and you empty it, you're like, wait, that much stuff was in it?
And doesn't it feel so good when you
it
get
feels so
everything
good.
out? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't even want to sell it now.
Yeah.
Now I kind of like
Yeah,
it again.
I'm borderline obsessed with living with as little as possible. So I couldn't be more. So you started writing about this?
I did. I started blogging that weekend. It was a free blog, becomingminimalist.wordpress.com. I was drawn to the idea of blogging, but I started it simply as a journal. My family lived in South Dakota. I think they were a little worried when I told them that I was going to try to become minimalist, and so I use it as a space not just to write about what I was doing and what we were getting rid of, what we were keeping, the lessons I was learning, the things I was noticing, but I think also just to let the grandparents know that their grandkids still had some toys and just the change that was taking place in our lives. And literally 2 readers that first month. I didn't think my wife was reading at the time, and now
Okay.
now we have over 1 million readers a month just drawn to this idea.
2 readers the first month, and now 1 million a month.
Yeah.
Did it go 2, 3, 4, or 2, 1,003? When did it start? Did you realize you were hitting a nerve?
There were some. It began to grow early, not significantly, but people would find it and they'd leave comments and leave thoughtful remarks, and I'm like, oh hey, people are finding this and are interested in what I'm writing. There were some pretty significant blogging changes in just my mentality, my philosophy that I made. So it eventually moved from, hey, I'm going to stop just talking about the belts that I was getting rid of, and I'm going to start sharing some of the things that I've learned and like really trying to inspire others and challenge others. And so there were some pretty significant changes that I made in what I was writing and how I was writing that probably some pretty significant incremental growth at that time. But it's been pretty consistent over the years.
And what was something that early on that you wrote that you realized, oh, that's a nerve, that hits something, that helps people?
The very first article that changed my thinking, literally, I wrote one evening about belts. Literally, it was the title. The title is belts. Why didn't I think of that? And then I kind of listed I saw the belts in my closet and the ones that I was getting rid of. And I'm at the end, I'm like, what am I doing with my life writing about belts? I had received a number of emails over the time and a few questions that kept popping up. And so the very next day, I wrote an article called "How to Become Minimalist When Your Partner Isn't," because it was just one of the most common questions that I got asked. And so I just wrote about what I learned in my relationship with Kim and what did go well and what didn't go well, and I just use it as an opportunity to to give advice, I think, or to share what I had learned. And that, like, right away, comments started piling up. Hey, that was really helpful. I never thought of that. I'm glad you did this. And so that was the big
Oh,
switch that took
interesting.
place. Yeah.
Interesting. And so there's this whole world of people. I had one of my first RobCasts ever was The Minimalists.
Yep.
Yours was Becoming Minimalist. There's this whole world. Did you get connected with other people who were writing and talking about this?
I did, although I did not purposefully seek them out. I was pretty content to just
Yeah.
write, diary journal style. There's a blogger named Leo Babauta at Zen Habits, and he
Is that
was
the guy with
writing.
6 kids in New
Yeah,
York?
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
6 kids in New York City.
No, he's in Northern California.
Oh, okay.
But he was in San Francisco.
Okay,
and,
San Francisco.
And now he's up there. Moved from Guam with 6 kids. They each had one box that they could bring over from Guam.
Really?
So, yeah. But his blog back, I mean, it's still fantastic. But 10 years ago, it was Time Magazine's #1 blog of the year. And he wrote a post about minimalism and said, hey, if you want to read more about minimalism, here's a good website. Here's a couple. And he listed mine on there. And there's like a flood of traffic that came popping in one evening. And I'm like, oh, finally blogging makes sense, right? Like we're interacting with each other. And so I started trying to find other people who were writing about minimalism and, sending emails to introduce myself or linking out from my blog to theirs. Hey, go read what Tammy's writing. Go read what Ev is writing. And so that was the connection where that community started to grow online.
So if we were to come visit you, you now live in Arizona?
Live in Arizona, yeah.
If we were to come visit you, what would we notice when we walked into your house?
Probably empty counters would be the first thing that you notice. I don't think anybody walks into my house and says, gosh, you must be a minimalist.
Would you write about minimalism for a career?
I had a friend who came over every week for about a month, and about a month later, she's like, I just thought you guys were moving. everything just seemed boxed up. I wonder where the stuff was. But we're a family of 4. It's me and my wife and 2 kids. We have a 1,600 square foot home out in the suburbs of Phoenix. There's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and so we never thought to ourselves, hey, I want to live in a 200 square foot tiny home. We were never drawn to that. I was pastoring at the time. And so we had a number of small groups that were meeting in our home. I was doing premarital counseling at the time. We were having new families from the church over for dinner. And so hospitality was always something that was important to us. And I didn't want to give that up. Minimalism almost became like the promotion of what we valued, right? And so I could have moved into a 200 square foot home, but my goal wasn't to live in the smallest home that I could possibly live in. My goal was to accomplish the things in life that I wanted to accomplish better with more focus and energy. And so that became how we defined minimalism.
Got it. And that's what I've picked up is so many of the people who are helping so many people like you are like, wait, this is not to see how much stuff you can get rid of. This is about how focused and intentional and almost clean and pure you can get your life, which will inevitably mean you get rid of a bunch of junk. But it's about something much deeper.
I would say there's some very felt needs, some very real needs that minimalism meets. So when you start owning less stuff, you have more time, right? Because you're not cleaning and organizing and repairing, and you have more money because you're spending less and you're taking care of less. You have more focus. You have less distraction. You have less stress. You become a better example for your kids, better stewards for the environment. Like there's these very felt needs. The New York Times ran an article last fall calling our generation in America the most busied, hurried, stressed generation of all time, which there's, I think, just direct correlation to the fact that we own more stuff in our culture than we've ever owned before. So there's those very felt needs that minimalism meets. But on a deeper sense, minimalism forces us to define our values. Like we can't decide what we're going to keep what we're going to get rid of until we decide what we want our life to be about and what we want to accomplish with our life. And so what are the tools, what are the things that we need to own to help us get there? And then what's just all the fluff stuff that's just we've just
Right.
tacked on because, the
Right, which
media
quickly
told us
takes you
to.
into matters of soul and spirit. We're now talking about what does it mean to be a spiritual being and what does it mean to
Yeah.
you use a couple of phrases in your writing. You use de-owning.
Yeah.
What does de-owning?
Yeah. I compare it to decluttering a little bit. I think that there's organizing has its space. Excuse me. There's a space for organizing and managing our things and putting them in the right places. But organizing is always just like a temporary solution, right? We organize today, just have to organize our stuff again tomorrow. But when you de-own, like when you remove things permanently from your life, it's a permanent action. They're gone. They're not going to be there the next day. You don't have to deal with them again. They're not weighing on you. And so I compare the two, right? Like don't just declutter, but de-own, like get rid of your things completely entirely because there's benefits to it.
You also use a phrase rational
Yeah.
minimalism.
Yeah.
Why do you put rational?
Rational was a phrase that someone else actually used about my writing that I loved so much. It was just a mom had a blog and she linked over to my site years ago and she said, I like this guy's definition of minimalism. It seems so rational. And I would compare it to the guys who were, hey, I own less than 100 things. Well, I own less than 57 things. Everything I own fits in a backpack, right? We're a couple. We have less than 100 things between us, right? And it was like this.
No, wait, people count?
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
minimal world, they'll count?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah,
It's like a toothbrush is one.
yeah.
Is a pair of shoes one or two?
It gets fuzzy on who's counting, right? Like
Oh,
some
okay.
people count books as one. They have a whole bookshelf. They
got
just
it.
count as one. But some people count one book as one. So there's no rules to this thing. They
Yes.
just kind of go.
That's funny.
Right, but it was very. I thought it was very extreme. Like I was never drawn to the idea of owning 99 things. I was drawn to the idea of owning less, but aligning what I owned with what I wanted to become and what I wanted to do. And so it's very. I think a good word, right? It's a thoughtful,
Yeah.
a thoughtful approach to what I'm owning. A very intentional approach to it.
Okay, couple questions. Tell me about Christmas for your family. You do a tree?
We do have a tree.
You have
yeah.
two kids.
Yeah.
They're like preteen, teenager.
My daughter is 10 and my son is 13.
So
And my wife and daughter love the tree. And,
there's a tree, presents.
we do three gifts. We give, our theory is something they want, something they need, and an experience to share with the family. So that's what we give to our kids. One thing that they want, one thing they need if you're getting into new sports, right? Kids are always changing, right?
Right,
and
right,
so
right.
there's different, and they're growing. So it's usually something that they need. And then we, if it's, pass to the museum or out dinner somewhere that they like to
experience.
go. Yeah, some experience that they share that we all do together, and we've used that for the last about 4 years, and it's worked pretty well. It doesn't always work with grandparents, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
always like sometimes
Play by
they
the
just,
same rules.
yeah, they you keep telling them, hey, no, seriously, we don't want a lot of stuff, but sometimes they. I think it depends when you hit them. Some years they're like, okay, and other years they're like, I don't care what you say. I'm just getting my grandkids whatever they want.
I love, I love how real you're. I just love. That's how actually. Yeah. Okay. Secondly, your clothes closet. How is it different than it was 10 years ago?
There are probably a third of the clothes in my closet now than I had before. I went through and removed clothes that I didn't want and didn't need. About months later, then I stumble across this experiment by Courtney Carver called Project 333, where it's an experiment to wear 33 articles of clothing for 3 months. And it counts shoes and coats and jewelry and everything.
33 articles of clothing for 3 months.
Yes, that's the experiment, right? It's just a test. And so I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. I maybe had 50 or 60 things. I probably cut it in half from 100 to a 50. So I just took out everything, left 33 items. This was winter in Vermont, right? Like the two things that people always say. Well, I'm a woman, so I can't do it, and I live where it's cold, so I can't do it. And I'm not a woman, but Courtney invented it, and she is, and I did it over the course of the winter, and I loved it, Rob. It was so amazing to open up the closet and like everything hanging there you love. I'm like, and everything matches with everything else. I'm like, I'm gonna wear this shirt, this pants, and so much less to think about.
Now are you in the 30s?
Yeah, yep, yeah. I haven't. I'm somewhere probably
Yeah, yeah.
35.
How about Kim?
No, she has many more.
Is she with you in the whole minimalism thing?
Yeah, she is. I would say if I want to get rid of 80% of our stuff, she wanted to get rid of half of our stuff. So her closet is much less full than it was eight years ago, but it's not to where I am, and she's happy and content. And I'm like, well, there's some fights worth fighting and some not.
Yeah, because I would, like with Kristen, I would be like, just chuck it all. But then I sliced my toe open last week surfing, all the skin off the tip of the toe, and I need a gauze bandage with a waterproof thing. And Kristen's like, closet in the hall, second shelf, green plastic container. I would have chucked that thing so fast, but then, you know what I mean? Mom has this extraordinary, at some point you're going to need that, and you're not going to want to get in the car with your bloody foot and drive somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably would have found a solution. You would grab a paper towel or a
duct
napkin
tape,
or something.
peanut butter or something.
I mean, peanut butter knife.
I don't know about peanut butter. I don't know where that came from. Okay. How about devices? iPads, iPhone. How about screen time? Is that something that you talk about? How do you do that?
Yeah, technology is interesting. Number one, I'm a fan of technology in that I think technology makes minimalism easier today, more accessible today than ever before. Really? Right? Well, I mean, on just my phone right here, I have maps and books and movies
how much
and music. Right? It's like
like
a Mary Poppins handbag of all my stuff, right? Just in the phone. And so there's less physical things that I need to own because I have that. And then I write online. I make my living online. So I use an iPhone and I use a Mac, and that's what we use. That's what I have. There's one television in our home. We went down from 4 televisions to 1. The average American home has more televisions than people. Did you know that? And yeah, and it's not even hard to believe,
the
right?
The average American home has more televisions than people.
Yeah, and we had 4. We had 4 televisions, and we went down to 1. I'm like, let's just test out. Like I think experimenting is a huge part of minimalism. Got it. There's a whole chapter in the book on just the value of testing out less and seeing what works and what's the right amount. So we went from 4 televisions to 1, and we just loved it. At least I loved it. I thought that we were together more and we're watching the same stuff, and make my wife watch sports with me. It's fantastic. She loves it.
How do your kids strain? Is this a point of contention with your kids, or are your kids like, how have they dealt with this?
So you certainly have different personalities in kids. My son is 13. He's very content with a soccer ball and a video game system. That's all he needs. My daughter is 10, and she likes Barbies and clothes and arts and crafts. So my son has always been he's been easy, and my daughter's been a little more wanting to collect things. Mm-hmm. And at first it drove me crazy that she wanted to collect stuff. I'm like, no, we don't do that. And then I went back to when I was 7 and 8 and 9 and 27 and 28 and 29, and I loved collecting things. And at some point I just said to myself, like, I really expect her to understand at age 8 what took me 32 years to figure out.
Your journey, not hers.
Yeah, like maybe this is unfair for me to, but there's certainly things we can do. We set boundaries, and she knows that we're just not grabbing anything and everything that we can, but still that's her journey, and I think we all develop differently, right? Even
Right.
God, I would say, God is teaching us different things and showing us different things at different points in our lives. And
So
this is my journey. And
so part of it was obviously you're shaping the home she's grown up in, but it sounds like it for you there was some sort of there's a point at which I've crossed a line and I'm forcing something on her that is that she's going to have to grow into whatever she goes into.
yeah, boundaries are very helpful for kids. Certainly, we would all agree with that. But so is patience, and so is love, and
Yeah,
so is
yeah, yeah.
kindness. And
Well said. And of course we have to go here. What is your garage like now?
oh, what is my garage? Good question. What's in my garage? Bikes. There's 4 bikes. My son has a bicycle ramp. Luckily, I'm not a tool guy, so
Yeah.
I think there's a hammer and a screwdriver, and then there's a pile of sporting equipment in the corner that my son loves to play sports, and I like to play tennis, and so it's I don't know, everything in there needs to
different.
be in there, stuff that we
Yeah.
use, yeah,
And it's
and
different
a car,
than the
and
garage.
there's a car in there.
There's a car in there. It's different than the garage in Vermont.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, gosh, I can hours, but it's not that. I think the numbers are like 30% of Americans can't park both cars in their 2-car garage, right? I mean,
Good Lord, you have the stats.
we're just
37% of Americans can't park both cars in the garage
yeah, and
because of so much stuff.
yeah, we're just grabbing more and more and collecting more and more, and just throw it in the garage and keep it there, as opposed to
Yeah.
getting rid of it.
Um, so you travel and speak. You help people think about a more intentional, purposeful life. You go and speak places. You do Q&A. What are the 1 or 2 questions you know for sure before you open it up for questions in every crowd? These are the 1, 2, 3 questions that I know will get asked anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world.
I'm always going to get asked about partners, spouses. What do I
How do we
I
stay on
do?
the same page? What do you do?
No, how do I get rid of them? No. No. Yeah, and it's very funny because it doesn't matter, right? Like the guys complain about the wife's closet, and the wife complains about the guy's garage or basement or tool shed, right? Like but it's always easier to see everyone else's clutter than it is to see
Yeah.
our own, right?
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
So I always expect it, and we talk through that. I'll get asked about kids, which my response, like, how do I get rid of my kids' stuff? And my response is always, you can't start with your kids' stuff. That's just
Right.
unfair to
Right,
make them
right,
get rid of
right,
all
right,
their
right,
things
right.
until you've gone
Right,
on the
do your
journey
work,
yourself.
do your
Yeah,
work.
exactly. Because they see it, right? Like if you've lived this life where you're just collecting things and you're grabbing things and you're buying whatever you can, and then all of a sudden you're gonna turn the page on them because you heard a presentation and
Yeah.
they didn't, right? Like it's just not fair. You need to do the work, learn the lessons, go through the emotions, set the example. So I get asked about that. I get asked about gifts. What do I do with sentimental things?
Oh, yeah.
Those are some
Like, what do
some
you
pretty
do with
common
sentimental
questions.
things?
My response is less is different than none. So I wouldn't tell anyone to get rid of all their sentimental things. But so often the sentimental stuff that we've collected is just in boxes in the basement or in the attic, right? Like there's so much of it that we're not even enjoying it.
Right.
So I say like go half it. Like if you have 2 boxes full of things, cut it down to 1 box, because
Right.
when you do it, when you're forced to make the decision, it's interesting to find, you know what, this actually does mean something to me, and this I just had because there was space. And so it helps us sort out, I think, most important from less important pretty quickly.
Yeah. I know these doves landed in our backyard and
He's
they've
about
been
ready
here
to
for like
he's
a
about ready to
week.
hop right in. He's
They
in for the
don't-
conversation.
They're totally not scared of us, and they come right up to us, and they act like they own the place. And now this one is literally, it's like going to come in, like it wants to take part in this conversation.
Well, I mean, let's talk about birds and minimalism, right? I mean, there you go. They're not grabbing. They don't have.
Right.
They're not building bigger nests
Look
than
at the
they
birds
need,
of the
and putting their
Look at that
chicks in
effortless segue.
separate worms, separate
It's
rooms.
interesting what you said about things that have memory. My first book was called Velvet Elvis, and that's sort of an inside joke with some friends from college when I actually bought a Velvet Elvis at a garage sale. And so I've had this Velvet Elvis since college. It's the ugliest. It's actually, you can see it up there. It's hanging up there above those surfboards.
Yeah,
Because
that's the
part of the
one.
thing for me in getting rid of so much stuff, because Kristen and I are like endlessly get rid of it, simpler, more focus, less clutter, is if I'm going to keep it, then hang it up and have it do its job. But like a box, just boxes and boxes of stuff that someday maybe, even an awful tacky Velvet Elvis, which is actually kind of awesome,
Yeah.
hang it up and enjoy it, has been huge for us. Otherwise, you're literally, you have volumes of stuff that's for someday.
My wife, she had a box, cardboard box full of things that she had taken from her grandma's apartment when her grandma passed away, and it was just in the basement. And we started minimizing stuff. We eventually got to the box, and she's like, "I haven't looked at this stuff in years." And I tell the story in the book. She pulls out three things. She pulls out the candy dish that was always in her grandmother's living room, and now it's in our living room. She pulled out her grandma's pin that was always on her coat, and she put it on her coat.
Oh, nice.
And she pulled out her grandma's Bible, which is now in her nightstand, and got rid of the rest, right? And so by owning less stuff, we actually brought more value, I think, to that relationship. And
Yes.
the things that we do have out tell a story about who we are and why we are the way that we are.
Yeah. And what kind of settings do you go and speak in?
It is funny. Churches, but I just got a call to go up to Portland in the fall to speak to educators. It's like a teachers thing for teachers and principals and superintendents. I spoke in New Hampshire at a continuing medical education class, where I spoke to a law firm in Dallas. I spoke to a group of financial and insurance agents in Las Vegas. It's very interesting. And the call is always the same on the phone. It's always, "Hey, you're not our normal speaker, but I found so much value in this message. I want my colleagues to hear it. Like, I want other people to think about this." And I'm like, "Okay, if you think I can talk to a bunch of doctors about minimalism, I'm in. I'll share it anywhere and everywhere."
That actually doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
There's just too much cheap stuff. And that's really interesting. Really interesting that like it's all across the board.
Yeah, and I find it. I mentioned I speak in church. I find it resonates. Hey, people in the church, right? Christ followers, like this makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
this is what Jesus was saying.
Yeah.
Like he was talking about this thousands of years ago, and people like of any faith or non-faith, like they're drawn
is
to
a
the
human.
idea of, right, that
This is human.
Yes, because I always close with the same thing. Like, our lives are just too valuable to waste chasing material possessions. Like, we were all designed, we were all created for something better and greater than this, right
Yeah.
here. And it resonates with people all across the board.
Okay, when you were in Vermont, if I would have met you and been like, "Dude, 10 years from now, you're going to be writing books and traveling around to law firms and medical groups talking about minimalism," would you have seen this? Are there seeds of this earlier in your life? Or would you have been like, "Come on, that is no way"?
Yeah, no, not at all. No, I never
Really?
would have seen it. Yeah. No, I was pastoring and loving it, and thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. I'm the rare blogger who didn't want to become a full-time blogger. I liked my job, and I liked what I was doing. Never would have seen this.
And now, like, literally best-selling books, millions of people, and this is what I'm supposed to do? How do you think about that in terms of your path? Like, I had a job, I had it all, I was fine. How do you think about that? Is it just, this is what needs to be done? Or you didn't set out to do this or make this. It wasn't like a career goal.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
I found, well, number one, I found success in it. Not like worldly success, but I found that this was a message that when I talked about it, people, like,
Yeah.
it struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
And I get emails, and I'm like, okay, this is something that I share well. So there was that part of it, and then I think there's just the growing need for it, and the lack of people talking about it. I mean, there were people talking about it and writing about it for centuries. People have been writing and talking about this, but I don't know. There's thousands and thousands of pastors, and there's just a few people out like really talking about the benefits of owning
Yeah.
less and how it will improve people's lives. And I just found all of my creative energy being drawn to this message, and said, I think I need to do this full time. So, but it was it was probably 2.5 years of, should I do this? Should I not do that? What am I really supposed to be doing? Does this really make sense? Am I really going to stop pastoring to do this? And it all made sense all along the way.
That's so good. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay, so the blog is called Becoming Minimalist.
The blog is called becomingminimalist.com. Yeah.
.com. The new book is called
The new book is called The More of Less: Finding the Life You Want Under Everything You Own, which I love the subtitle, by the way.
Tell me about that. Under the stuff you own?
Finding the life you want under everything you own. That deep down, I don't think you don't sit across a table from anybody and ask them, what do you most want to accomplish in life? And they say, I just want to own as much stuff as possible, right? Like people don't answer that when they really dig down deep. That deep down we want something better. We want significance.
Yeah.
We want to solve problems. We want to have an impact in people's lives, and that so often we've just accumulated so many things that advertisers and the media have just sold us this lie that we'll be happy with more, that we bought into it without even realizing it, and sacrificed a better life, unfortunately, because of it.
There's a new billboard right down here. I think it's on Robertson and the 10. It's an Amazon billboard for their new, in the city here. They're doing like a 1-hour delivery or something.
Oh,
The billboard is something like happy as an hour away. And I took a picture of it because I was like, we're not even intimating it anymore. It's not even implied. And they're sort of being tongue in cheek, but no, because there's always truth in humor.
Yeah.
It's something like happiness is an hour away.
well, I think Coca-Cola had the slogan "Drink Happy." I think that was that was their slogan for the longest time. Yeah, we stopped hiding it a long time ago.
And
Amazon's very interesting because they're all about, like, their biggest dream has been how do we make the buying process as easy and painless as possible, right? Like, how do we make things as accessible? And so they invented one-click ordering, and now they have the Amazon Dash button where you just, it's like have you seen them? It's just like a doorbell, and you just click it, and whatever product you want shows up the next day, right?
My friend of mine have been laughing about, they have one click, that at some point there'll be something that gets put in your head, and then it's just one thought ordering.
Yeah.
Like replacement razors. And then a drone comes down. I will think it, and then it will float down on my front door.
It's good. Or like retail.
Forget the click. Remember when we used to have to actually click? Oh, that's so complicated.
Such a pain.
Right. And you have to send them. You have to tell them oh, I'm sorry, I just thought about the wrong product. I thought about a size 4.
Can I just think about taking it back?
Yes. And then, right. I'm thinking about a return. Done. Okay, so, and then the first book was called what?
The first book I wrote is called Simplify.
Simplify. This is the second book.
There's some books in between. I wrote a book for parents called Clutter Free with Kids.
Clutter Free with Kids.
Yep.
Okay.
I wrote a book for high school students called Living with Less: An Unexpected Key to Happiness. But this is the best book by like a million miles.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, the others were all self-published, and they're great. They sell a ton. But this one was like really through the process, like people really pushing me on what are you writing, and challenging me on some different things. It's really good. I'm really proud of it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And how can people get a hold of you if they want you to come speak or all that stuff?
Becomingminimalist.com. There's a
Oh, okay,
there's a
great.
speaking page, speaking tab you can click on and
This
love
is
to- love to-
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm totally cheering you on. I love it. I love it. That closet back there is like the Bell family. Everything, if we're going to keep it, fits in that little closet.
Yeah.
Which is half wetsuits and half my son's clothes. So it's like half that closet is all of our storage as a family.
Yeah.
Which has been inspired by people like you who are like, no, you don't need all this stuff. So thank you.
Well, I knew you weren't going to have a lot when you invited me in your house, because most people, they just don't even.
Thank you, everybody. This is Joshua Becker.
I am very thankful for this opportunity, Rob. Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet
great.
you and have this
It's great.
conversation.
Grace and peace, everyone.